But if you can imagine, I think there's, I don't know, maybe 75 people. Well, Rosamond will tell you all about it, because I'll be honest with you, I know what a charrette is based on what I've researched.
Sounds like
Sure. Well, you guys came up with the name. So we're just trying to comply as well as we can. And I'll tell you, this is the first time that I've heard a charrette happen with planning. This normally does not happen. So this is a very special step that we've taken because we're listening. We're hearing that the process in the past wasn't inclusive, and so we want to make sure that we correct it. And then, Rosalie, you will have an opportunity to actually go exclusively through the charrette process. I don't want you guys to think that because if there's any breakouts, that there's breakouts to divide. There's breakouts really to manage input. Because this is a large crowd, and if everybody had 2 minutes and there's 100 people here, can you imagine we would be here beyond 3 o'clock. So it's really just for manageability, and I think we can be responsive to your needs if you tell us what would feel correct for you. So I was about to introduce our president, and I'll tell you that our president it's been really an honor to work with him outside of this process. We've been working together to make sure that all of our youth in District 8 have an ability to come to college. Maybe they've dropped out, right? They didn't receive their high school diploma, but there's still an opportunity here at the college for them to start once again without having credited classes so that they can get to a point, and they're free. I forgot to say, they're free. So that our youth can really walk into a 21st century global economy and be competitive with the rest of the world. And so President H has been, in his leadership and responding to us, because we in District 8 have a portion of the community that is really impacted this way. Maybe not everybody, but there's a portion of it, and I think he does really well in terms of providing equity to all of our students. And without further ado, please come on up. Thank you so much.
To welcome you on behalf of Evegreen Valley College to this workshop. Wow, we're proud to, on a Saturday, open our doors to, we've been in this business for over 40 years, and I'm honored to say that I've been a part of this community, this college, for 23 years, and so I'm not necessarily a newbie to the energy of this district. The district has been working with Republic Urban Properties for several years to develop this ground lease over the surplus land, and this is an opportunity for the neighborhood, but more so for the college and the district to benefit, to help the needs of our students. So I'm truly honored to welcome you here today, and it's sort of a running joke for me because today is important for me to be here for another reason. Today is my anniversary, and I don't have any surplus land at my house, so I'm going home shortly, if you understand that. I'll try to stay as long as I can, but it's a true honor to welcome you, and I'm sure we'll have a robust, energetic conversation, and I can't wait to hear how we can work as a team to help the community as well as help the students of Evegreen Valley College. So thank you for being here today. It's an honor to see all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, President H. And again, we appreciate you opening your doors and hosting us today. And also I understand, and this is very important, I think, to community members, my understanding is that even on the weekends, the college does charge for parking. And so we knew that when we got here, we were able to park free. So we thank you for that as well. And again, thank you for hosting us and staying for as long as you can. So with that, let's talk.
No, it's free.
Want to just kind of walk through why we're here today and how we envision this is going to work. So let me ask a question first. So how many people, this is your first time hearing about Evegreen Valley College, their plans for surplus property, any land use designation changes concerning the site. If this is the first time you've heard anything about it, raise your hand, because I want to get a sense. That's really good. So my sense is that everybody is here, is probably familiar, different levels of familiarity with the project, with the college. And so let me first just say, I want to address your concerns immediately about what this is, what we're doing this afternoon. So we've called it a meeting, a workshop, a charrette. I don't want any of us to get hung up on the terminology, okay? So we're here today to engage with you. We're here today, actually, Republic, the applicant, is fulfilling a requirement, as I mentioned earlier, to actually do some master planning process, visioning exercise for the 27 acres that's currently has a designation of neighborhood community commercial. And yes.
Is it 27 or like you say, yeah, it's a half?
It's 27 acres.
In the brochure, half.
Okay, so I'm.
Or 27.
All right, so I'm going to have our planning staff will actually walk through with you some very specifics about the site so that we're very clear on the numbers, how many acres, the land use designation, the potential uses. So we'll have very specific information for you on that. So before we get to that though, so what we have envisioned for this afternoon, we're going to go through this preliminary process now. We're going to answer questions and provide you with the history and overview of the site, and our planning staff will do that. We have opportunity to hear from community leaders who have been engaged in this process for probably several years, I'm sure. So we want to hear from community leaders. They represent you. And then after that, this is what we call the workshop portion of the day. We actually have 3 stations set up. I'm going to explain more about it later, but that will be the opportunity for you as attendees to actually speak with our planning staff. We have representatives from the applicant, we have other city staff, we have staff from our public works department, and we have other technical experts and resources to help answer questions. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the 3 different stations later. But before we get into that, I think it's important that you hear from our planning staff and give you that overview of the site. So I'm going to ask John Tu, who is our supervising planner, to come, and actually Cassandra, you can come on up as well. And I want to introduce to you Cassandra Vander Sweep. I got it right. And Cassandra is actually new to the planning division. She's been with us 3 months now, and so she is now serving as project manager for the specific application that's currently on file with the city, and that is a rezoning application.
You should mention Cassandra grew up in this neighborhood, so she's very familiar with that.
Thank you, Ned. So Cassandra grew up in this neighborhood. That's great. So you have a great resource. I actually live in the neighborhood too, so you've got great resources here to work with you. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to ask staff. You have a clarifying question?
Yes, I thought you were going to define what a charrette was.
So I can define, again, I don't want us to get hung up on terms. If you look it up, charrette actually is an urban design term that planners, urban designers, other design professionals use. And basically, it's a workshop. It's an opportunity to look at a particular site, to talk about uses of the site, how you would like to walk through the site, drive through the site, talk about adjacencies, talk about things that are important about a particular site. So it's, again, don't get hung up on the term. What we're going to be doing today is talk about long-term aspirations, right? So we know we have a rezoning application on file now, and that's going to be for something specific. But we know that later, that this is a long-term development. We know that the college, the district, has long-term aspirations for their students and what they have to provide to their students. So again, I like to describe this, and really with all planning projects and development proposals, we really are balancing different needs and aspirations. So for you as the community, you obviously have aspirations about how you would like things to look in your community. and what type of uses you would like to see there, and what type of amenities you need for yourself, for your children, for everybody who comes in and out of the community. And then when I say I'm balancing, generally the college also, they have aspirations and things that they need to achieve for their students as well. So throughout this process, it won't end today. This is a long-term effort, and through that process, we're going to be balancing those various aspirations and objectives. So, John.
You said this is ongoing, are there going to be more charrettes?
When I say it's going to be ongoing, as the city gets additional applications on file, there's always a community engagement process component regarding that. So currently, we have a rezoning application on file. There is a community outreach process for that. With the general plan land use designation change that the council approved in December of 2016, it required a community engagement process, and that's what we're doing today. And when I say long-term, I'm sure in the future, if there are aspirations and development proposals coming forward, again, there's always a community engagement process with each application that we get with the city.
There's nothing planned at this point yet.
Okay, so I'm going to let John talk about the history of the site and the application that we currently have on file. If we can, John will probably answer your specific questions. If not, we will be able to address them. John.
Say there's going to be multiple opportunities to do questions and answer. We just kind of want to just do the general parameters and let everybody have the ability to kind of understand what we're here doing today and how your input is very important to us. So if I can add on a charrette, it's basically a visioning exercise to kind of see what can we get your input about what you guys envision for the entire area. It's a fancy word for a very important process. So I don't want to get tied up into that word. So to clarify your question, what we have on file is that the college and the developer has a 27-acre parcel surplus that the college has been kind of envisioning and doing different things as part of you guys. There is an application on file for a PD zoning. What that is a zoning district to have kind of the development rules. What uses can be allowed? What's the max height? How far should it be? What are the general architectural styles that should be incorporated in terms of that? So when you say there's no specifics, that's kind of the reason. If we get so far down line in the design of a project, then what is the point of doing a charrette? Of getting your input on the project. So that's kind of the intent we're doing here. They have a conceptual kind of building for a medical office and maybe some care facilities that are just saying, you know what, can we do these uses? Is this going to be something that will work? And how does this interplay with the other 15 acres as part of the property? So that's a combination of viewing the visuals and then giving input about if this project in the zoning move forward, would this be compatible in different aspects? The whole point of it is just the general development. So there's not going to be, this is exactly how the building's going to look, this is exactly where it's going to place. We want to kind of say, what are your concerns? I like it maybe moved a little further away from the street. I want there to be access a certain way. And that's kind of where the breakout stations are going to go. So that's kind of what we kind of acknowledge, that we're doing all those things as much as possible. And as other applications come in with more details and access for additional entitlements, there will be other types of outreaches, charrettes, community meetings, ability to email Cassandra or myself, call us up and ask us questions. So this is not the only opportunity. They're not going to be able, after this meeting, to just go start building. It's a very long process that involves a lot of different types of entitlements. So in addition to that, so a PD permit is where you get into the detail about how the building is exactly going to look. Does it have capacity? Is it engineered correctly so stormwater doesn't run off into your neighborhood? And all those different things. Are they paying for appropriate public improvements? It is that application that still has to come in for them to even be able to go to the building department. So we're not even at that stage yet.
Question.
At what point could you really not turn back? Where, well, we've got this concept, and we've already got this far, and yeah, well, we could adjust the setback by 2 feet, or we can adjust this, but is it going to be a medical facility? That's a discussion.
I usually hate lights, to be honest. So they don't have any entitlements right now. So that's where all those development standards are up for discussion right now, and getting your input is where we design that. So until they actually get a building permit or actually get entitlements for planning, a lot of those are on the table for discussion.
And sir, it's really at the stage of the development permit application, and so that would be the next step. So currently we have the PD zoning on file, and so that's what the city is processing now. That's step one. Step two would be a development permit application where you do get into the specifics about the project. So that's more information about setbacks, architectural materials. That's when we talk about there is an actual project. Right now, it's not an actual project that we are reviewing. We are doing a zoning envelope, okay? So that next stage, that development permit application process is an important process, but we're not there yet. So hope that clarifies.
What's been decided already?
So what has currently,
Changed and what's been decided already that you're for?
there's one action that the city council has taken, and that was in December 2016, and that is, up here you see, the land use designation for the site is neighborhood, community, commercial. And you'll read here the types of commercial uses that would be allowed in that land use designation. So currently, that's what we have.
Can anything be changed about how much is going to the college and how much is going to be commercial? Because it sounds like you're developing most of this for commercial and the college is being ruled out.
So good question. And the appropriate, I think, probably opportunity to get detailed answers to your particular question will be at the workstations that we're going to be involved in just a few minutes. Okay? I'm going to take a couple of other clarifying questions. Yes, ma'am.
So I was going to say, I think as a community, it's important to hear some of those questions as a whole group, because if you break them out into sections, we won't be able to hear those questions. You understand what I'm saying? So maybe, a fourth of the group will hear it, but the other 75% will not. So I have some concerns about that.
Understand your concerns about wanting to hear every word that's being shared in a small group setting. We think that the best way to gather your input is going to be in these 3 different workstations. And I don't know if we have this on the slide. We might as well just go there now. So we have 3 different stations based upon different topics. So the first topic is vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation. So in that station, you can share with us and you can ask questions about access, how you get in and out of the site, circulation in and through the site, the importance of the site being well integrated into the community. The next workshop station is around services, uses, and amenities, and that's when we talk about the different types of uses. Is it commercial retail? Is it a medical facility? Is it an office building? Other potential uses that could be contemplated in the future. And then amenities. What amenities and services are important to the community? What things are currently missing in your neighborhood? What services aren't here? What things you would like to see? And then the last station is around design and how the project looks, because we want any future development to look good, to be aesthetically pleasing, and to fit well into the community and to be designed very well. So those are the 3 workshop topics. Now, if you're concerned that you're not hearing what your other neighbors are saying, please know that at the end of each small group discussion, actually we're going to have a facilitator and a note taker at each table, and they're going to be recording the key points and the information that you want to make sure that we capture. So we're going to be writing that down for each workshop station. And then before the end of the day, we're going to have a report out. So you're going to have an opportunity to hear from each of those small group discussions. Yes, sir.
My question is, are we binded to workstation 3 or workstation 2, or can we?
You are actually going to rotate. You will have the opportunity to visit each station. So you'll go to each of the 3. Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify. So there's a map of the heating zone. There's 2 zones. And then there's two that are future developments. The future development, we're not here for that. That's the land book, we call it. That hasn't been submitted. That is still technically the follow plan.
No, I'm gonna let John, actually, I'm gonna let you answer first and probably fill in.
We're here talking about the entire site, and here there is an application that has been a first shot conceptual that the developer has brought forward. Is that use appropriate? How does it integrate with your future vision for the entire site? So it's kind of a two-part aspect of it. So we're visioning the entire aspect of it and the integration. So we're talking about circulation, talking about design, we're talking about uses, what kind of uses should be appropriate for the entire area. So.
Okay, another question. So this noticing that went out, so I just noticed that not everybody in my neighborhood got this notice, because it only goes out 1,000 feet. So is that true? So like people off Delta Road, they're not even here. Delta Road's the first street past this land development. So if you only sent this notice out to 1,000 feet from the zoning, then how are you gonna get everybody's input? I live on a court, and technically all the people on my street technically didn't get this notice.
Very good point. And this is one thing that we in the planning department, because our jobs is working with community residents every single day, and there's probably never an opportunity where we have done all that we can do and gotten a notice to everybody, and that's why we really do rely on you. So you're here today, your neighbors are here, we have the round table who are here, who are your leaders, and we really are looking to you to help us get the word out. So if there's particular neighborhoods, subdivisions, streets that you think need to be captured, let us know. We have an extensive email distribution list. I know that the former project manager helped to develop that, and we will continue to add to that list. So if there are people that you think need to be involved, we want them involved. Yes, sir?
The foundation of any development in Evergreen is governed by the Evergreen Development Policy, which dictates the number of allocations that exist. So I guess my question is where or how in the charrette will we discuss if, when, and how the Evergreen Development Policy will be amended?
Very good question, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I forgot to mention in my overview. So in terms of this particular area, we've talked about the general plan land use designation, which is foundational. The general plan land use pretty much dictates the types of uses that can occur. Also that we have here for this particular site is the Evergreen East Hills Development Policy. I got that right. And associated with that is a traffic impact fee. And that particular policy was last amended 2008. Oh, Karen has trained me well. So we have Karen Mack from our Public Works Department, who is intimately familiar with the Evergreen policy and has worked on it extensively. As probably many of you know, there is limited development capacity left in that policy. Very little residential capacity left. So if one of the aspirations for the community or for the college for that matter is for residential units, then yes, that development policy and actually that land use designation would have to be changed or modified or amended. And so those are things that would have to happen in the future. So we want to recognize that because some of you might want to see residential development or affordable housing or housing for students and housing for faculty. We know how important that is. So if that's something that's important to you, we do want to hear from you. But today we do want to acknowledge that there would be significant changes that would have to be made. The current Evergreen policy would have to be modified, amended. And the land use designation would have to change because the current land use designation doesn't allow any housing. So a very good point. But we, at this point, because this is meant to be a visioning exercise, we don't want, although we want you to be well educated about the current rules, let's say, we don't want that to deter you to think about other types of uses and activities and amenities that you would like to see in the area.
Does assisted living considered housing or is it commercial?
It depends, and great question, and that's a specific question that you should ask in workstation number 2 that's going to be focused on services and uses and amenities? That's a very good question. It depends on the specific type of uses, and you can ask that question at the workstation. Any other clarifying questions before we move on?
Are you holding to a 3 o'clock deadline?
I'm going to, well, let's say this. We are here committed to work with you. We have currently designed 20 minutes for each station. We know that you all probably have a lot to share. I don't know if we have a hard end date, but we will be here to work with you this afternoon. Yes, sir.
Why do we need more commercial buildings?
That's something that you can bring up see, those are just the type of comments and input that we want to hear at the workstation.
There's at least.
So we'd love to hear from you at the workstation. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Stephen at part of District 8 Roundtable. Just to help clarify this some more, a large number of us were against this, and we attended all the public meetings. We fought this tooth and nail. This decision was handed down at 2 in the morning on December 15th. It's a done deal. It's going to happen. And I'm thankful that we're invited here to have some kind of input. We don't like it, but at least we can have some input on what we're going to have. It's going to be built. It's already been passed by City Council.
I don't see the need for more.
I understand that. We fought it all. We had our speeches. We had our speeches. We fought it tooth and nail.
So thank you.
We were up till 2 in the morning, the City Council.
I clearly remember that City Council
to
meeting.
fight this thing, and we all had jobs. I sent my son home. As far as District 8, the next 2 meetings will be the second Thursday of the month. With the second Thursday in March, we'll be having the mayor come, and everybody's invited. We'll be at the library there at the circle.
Okay, so since we're getting into very detailed comments and input that we really want to capture at the workstations, I'm going to move us along very quickly. Before we get there, I mentioned earlier that we wanted to hear from community leaders and community residents who have been involved in this, and so I'm going to ask Robert Reese as well as Jim Zito to come up and give a couple of brief remarks.
We really appreciate the City of San Jose, Councilmember Sylvia Arenas, and the development team with the College District and Republic Urban for going the extra mile and doing this meeting. This meeting is a result of an unusual council motion, which was for master planning the 27 acres. When the council changed the general plan from public, quasi-public to commercial, they understood that this was a significant land use change for the neighborhood, and they wanted to do this master planning. There's been no application submitted. This is different than most other community meetings with development applications because we have the opportunity to design what we would like to see there. One of the good points of consensus out of that council meeting was the district was very clear that there would be no housing. The council was very clear that there would be no housing. And the district and the development team spoke of the amenities that might be on the site. And these were amenities that they discussed in the public hearing after they knew there would be no housing. And those include the aquatic center, maybe some playing fields, some other amenities like that. So we have a lot of positivity to go on as we move forward on this. One thing, since we are going to be breaking into small groups, we don't have the map now, I'm going to pass this to Jim Zito, who is the founder of our community District 8 Roundtable and former chair of the Land Use Committee.
Thank you, Robert. Basically, what we want to see is we're looking at the big picture, right, and what's going to be there. So this is a visioning project, and I know one of the reasons it's thought that there was no other Charrettes is because I'm a lot older than Sylvia is by far, and there was a Charrette. There was a Charrette for the Fowler Creek Park. There was a Charrette for the East Hills Visioning Project as well. And what that was when the community came together and we had basically a blank piece of paper, as we do here, and we decide or give input on what we want to see there. But in that mix, and as staff had mentioned, there is an evergreen development policy, and depending on what is proposed for that site, the development policy has to be followed, and if it can't be built with that, it may have to be adjusted, which is a whole nother can of worms that we would have to get into. And so when we go and give our thoughts of aquatic centers, of community centers, of uses for the community, which is what we were looking for, we will also take into consideration what impacts could it have on traffic, on the community, and on the college itself, and what their thoughts are. And that's what you should have in mind. I'm hoping that this won't be the last charrette or group meeting, however you want to call it. Charrette's a fancy French word, but a group ability to come in and give input at other stages of the policy, of the development plan, I should say. So with that, I also thank you for being part of this, and look forward to your continued input.
Thank you so much, Jim and Robert. So with that, we are going to move right into our 3 different workstations. We're going to get back together real briefly. We just want to hear some of the highlights from the discussions. And I'm going to ask our planning staff to be ready to identify some of the highlights, the recurring themes of the discussions. And so we want staff from each of the 3 workstations to share with us some of the key highlights. Obviously, we're not going to be able to report out on everything that was shared and that we heard. But my understanding is that we do have some highlights and really some reoccurring themes that were discussed in each one of the workstations. So first, I want to say thank you for participating. I know this particular format is probably something you're not necessarily used to, but I thank you for participating. I hope it was helpful. And so with that, we are actually going to start with workstation 2, which was the station on services, uses, and amenities. And John, too, is going to share some of the highlights.
Thank you guys for bringing it out towards the end on this beautiful day. So I kind of started our discussion talking about the NCC and how it's predominantly more of a commercial gathering thing. So I clarified with a couple people that the current conceptual proposal for the 12.9 acres for a assisted care facility is more of a medical serve need, not just a living facility. It is where people definitely are going to get medical services to them. So that really differentiates itself from a residential use. So by no means is this extensive. I got quite a wall back there of all the different uses. So just because I didn't bring it up in the highlight does not mean that it is not taken down as a note. But these are kind of the ones that we've heard repeatedly over a very different group. One was they wanted uses that integrated really well with the college that can expand to the land, such as training facilities or spaces for student workshops and other aspects. They also wanted private community gathering spaces, such as community gardens, aquatic centers, and other uses that really blends, that can be used by the students and used by the community. They wanted uses that are active both at day and night, so that it's just not being used only during certain times, and that can help serve retail uses around there and activate that area. They wanted local commercial that serves the kind of the residents around here. We also heard from a lot of people that there are empty retail spaces in other places, but it's a balance with the development about how can we integrate a bunch of different uses that benefits both the development, it benefits the residents and the college. And that one of the things that was brought up that wasn't necessarily consistent with the NCC, but we wanted to relay that we did take it, was there was a lot of interest about student housing and teacher housing.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you for all who participated. And as you can see, we are even capturing the highlights from each of the workstations as we speak. So thank you for doing that. So I'm going to ask workstation 3 to come forward. So Cassandra's going to come forward. This was the station on design and aesthetic.
Right? We had some great conversation about what we really want to see these buildings and the design of the buildings look like. And some of the highlights were having distinctive architecture. Not something that's big, but something that's memorable somehow in the design. And next, we had landscaping, the importance of it being green. It's evergreen, and we want that maintained, as well as public open space that's accessible, utilizing the existing trails and incorporating them into the new design. Finally, kind of going off the distinctive architecture, we saw an importance of placemaking and visual cues. Placemaking, recognizing that we're still at Evegreen College and incorporating that somehow into the design and making it so that when you leave the place, you know you were in Evegreen and you were at this specific place. And then finally, also respecting the area as it is right now. Not building something too tall, not being too close to the street, having some setbacks within that design. So that was it.
Sandra, and last but certainly not least, the workstation on circulation.
Thank you. We had a lot of good conversation. You guys are experts about your streets, and I appreciate that. Let's start with the site itself. I think we talked about where the access would occur and whether we needed more access on San Felipe and whether there was some speeding problems, which we can look into on Yerba Buena. The integration between this site and the college traffic seemed to be a big concern, so we can certainly look into that. The intersection of San Felipe and Yerba Buena, I know there's an improvement plan there. Several people brought that up. There was an idea to put a local circulation road between the possibly the project site and the college, which had a lot of merit. We talked a little bit about the limitations of the policy, the transportation policy, and how there was just a defined amount of square footage, and so this project would be building probably within that envelope in the immediate plan. We also talked about the existing trails on the site, and there was a desire to keep those connections for local folks to be able to walk and bike. There was some discussions of the existing bridge and the desire to make sure that that bridge connects to the site also. We had a little bit of dialogue about the trouble with circulation and mobility through Evegreen. The city is very much aware of that, and that led to a discussion about the buses and transit and whether and how the city could participate in making it better for the residents in this area. Is there anything else?
Traffic, that's a big thing.
Traffic's a big thing. The city recognizes that, and I think that it's reflective in the transportation policies that they've adopted.
Thank you, Karen and David. And so with that, just a few closing remarks. So first, I want to make sure that each of you, in terms of staying informed about the process, that you take your agenda home with you. On the back of it, you have the contact information for Cassandra and for John. Feel free to reach out to them for your questions, concerns. We want to make sure that you have captured your email address, because we have established a very robust email distribution list. So when we're ready to send out information about the PD zoning application, that you will be on that list and we'll get some updates. I want to thank Evegreen Times for their great article in their latest edition about the project, and I got feedback from several of you was that, that was the only way I found out about this workshop, is when I read that article. So we appreciate them providing facts about the application and the process. So thank you to Kevin for that. Shout out to Kevin.
Wasn't this exciting? Yeah, wasn't it a Saturday well spent? Yeah, absolutely. I know, Sandy, you've been with us this whole time through, haven't you? I know a lot of you have been really patient for in this to have this process actually happen. And I want to recognize that Jim reminded me about that there's past charrettes that we've had, and that's why we expect this level of interaction and participation in terms of our community. And so thank you for reminding us about that. It isn't something that the planning department does nowadays because we're so we don't have the same level of, we don't have the resources, we don't have the people on board just yet. So I'm really excited to have been part of a couple of the groups, and I heard a lot of really great input. And I love that people were really open And I think that I heard a lot of themes about sportsplex or open fields and the look and feel of how we want this to be. And so I think a gentleman said, you know, we don't have an identity, but it should carry on into the I think it was you, sir, that had said, you know, we want to continue to create an identity about Evergreen so that when people drive into Evergreen, they know they've hit the green space, right? Because people come out here to celebrate weddings, to have, this is a beautiful backdrop for any special occasion. So we want to continue with that. And I'm really excited that everybody has had the chance to participate. So what's going to happen next is that all of this great information is going to feed into what the developers are going to do and help guide them, as well as the planning staff. So not everybody has heard, everybody who is part of the planning, who will touch this in the different phases of the planning, the zoning and permit applications. Now they know what you're looking for, right? And so they'll help, this will help keep them on track in terms of the vision. And then ultimately it'll guide me and my colleagues when we vote on this. So we have an idea of what you want to see. And so I think John had reminded me that there is a website that we will have so that we can continually update you regarding this project. Do you want to name off the website? Because I think this is only your emails.
So it's on the city's webpage, so as we get updates to revised plans, as we start drafting up different things, we're gonna, you know, even putting notes that we've got today, we're gonna put them all up on the notice that you got. It has, if you got a notice, it has a web page to the city's page. It also has, at the bottom of the agenda, if you didn't get it, it has a link to the web page. And so there's multiple different resources. If you can't find a link, feel free to email Cassandra, and she can send you the link over there. But yeah, we're going to keep you as updated as possible. If you didn't sign in, please sign in. That's one way we're distributing information. We're trying our best. Mailing is just one way that we try to outreach to come out. We appreciate, you know, when the local newspaper helps us distribute information next door in different aspects. We want to keep you engaged, and we want to take the information we got today to really guide the decision makers, and that the next steps, we're going to solicit your feedback when something of a paradigm or an idea of what could potentially start developing on here. We want to get your feedback as well. So this is just the beginning.
Thank you so much, John. One last question, because it is 3:30. We had said 3 o'clock, and so I want to be respectful of everyone. Yes?
Let me tell you, this issue, we're getting at the tail end of the issue of the 27 acres. Now I'm asking you to get involved with the issue of the 900 houses that they want to build. Tell your friends, come to the District 8 round table, participate. We need you to be there. Sometimes they call us troublemakers. Don't worry about that. Come, get involved, and bring your neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that announcement. We call it Rebels with a Cause. That's what we call it. So I'm glad you brought that up. The initiative that now will be on the June ballot is called the Senior Housing Initiative. It is not an accurate description of what the initiative really is, because it's not meant for seniors. It's a gated community with detached homes. It's 910 homes in that very empty lot that you see right in front of Fowler Creek, next to the Hitachi company. And so I would encourage you to get informed. There's a wonderful committee if you want to be part of that. I think Patrick can connect you. So Patrick is my chief of staff. He's here and he can connect you with that. You can also talk to Jim Zito. If you want to come up here, Jim, and just say a couple of words. Of course, I think everybody knows that how I feel about this initiative is really going to circumvent our city process and all of the input that has been given for the 2040 general plan. This is not what our city has planned for. This is actually quite contrary to it. And the other piece of that is that us as taxpayers will subsidize a lot of the developers what usually are meant as community benefits. And so I ask you to please get involved by educating yourself about what that initiative is, and if you happen to have some time, to please take a role so that we can educate others, because this is a citywide effort.
Thank you, Councilmember. Just real quick, 1 minute. It does have a direct, immediate impact on Evergreen, and it will absolutely affect how this project will look because of its impact on the development policy and on all the allocations, because if they build 900 plus units up there, it's going to change the whole traffic circulation and all those kinds of things, right? So, but more importantly, for any of you, and I'm sure many of you have friends outside of Evergreen, a lot of people outside of Evergreen may look at it and say, that's an Evergreen issue, we don't care. But the bottom line is like any iceberg, the 910 homes, as much as it is such a big deal to us, it's only 10%. It's only the part that sticks out. The rest is underneath. And in the 300 plus pages of this initiative, talks about how they circumvent many, many safeguards that are in the planning process. And I know, speaking with planning staff, speaking with city council members, everybody's very concerned about the ability to circumvent all the safeguards, all the mitigation, all the funding mechanisms that are in there, so that certain developments can be built without going through the city process. So if you have friends and family and other people outside of Evergreen, please educate them on this, because this is a city-wide initiative. We're not the only ones voting.
We will have this item on our council agenda on the 13th, so if you, is it on the 13th? Yeah, okay. On the 13th, so please come and express your thoughts. We'd love to hear and have you there. So I think that was the last thing that we needed to announce. But before we go, I just wanted to thank also my staff. I thanked kind of at the beginning our planning staff, but I'm really impressed by our planning, by our Republic folks here with HMH, and everyone else who participated, because I think I heard people really capturing people's input as openly as possible and encouraging for more participation. And so thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your hard work. And thank you all for being here. If you're going to stay connected, please check out our website, or you can send me an email, or Patrick, who's my chief of staff here, and we can send you back some updates, okay? Thanks you so much, and have a great Saturday.